Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest episode of Skrew News, guys. All things Star Citizen. I'm your host, Monster69, here in Sydney, Australia, down under. And welcome to another episode. For those that don't know, we're available on YouTube, Spotify, and Pocket Casts on Google Android as well. And boy, what a week. What a week. There's a lot to dissect here, guys, this week. Most importantly, there's been a chairman's letter from Mr. Roberts himself, and we'll go through what I feel to be the main points of the letter, just to summarize it all, if you like. But it's definitely well worth checking it out yourself. I think there was some disappointment that Mr. Roberts didn't send out a Christmas letter, but it doesn't matter. He's sent out, I found, to be a frank and refreshing and optimistic chairman's letter, and we'll go through that shortly. Ships. We've had the Anvil Legionnaire kind of announced, if you like, which is a dedicated boarding ship with a nice twist to it. It's got apparently some hacking features that will be able to disable security systems and stuff, which is pretty cool. We've also got the Scorpius that's out in the PTU. I had a test flight in that as well, so I'll go through that as well. And more. Let's get stuck into the chairman's letter, because I think that is the most important thing. So I'll share my desktop, guys, and I know our wonderful podcast audio guys won't be able to see this, but it's all good. We will go through in detail. Well, the main points anyway. So Mr. Roberts starts off with a Groundhog Day line from Bill Murray. Don't drive angry. Don't drive angry. That's so true. That is so true. Just reflecting on myself, I have been in a few close calls when your mind is not focused on what's ahead, and you're totally distracted. But anyway, Mr. Roberts starts off essentially talking about the last couple of years and the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on businesses, on the world, and on themselves. And at the beginning, sort of, I was a little bit flippant at what the impact could be on development, but in my own sort of life and self-reflection, I work for a software developer company. I'm not a coder myself, but I work with developers, and I find myself kind of organizing my schedule in such a way that I make sure that the 2 or 3 days that I do go to work, a particular developer that I need to collaborate with is in the office, because when we're actually next to each other, we get things done like seamlessly. Like, things happen when you're in the office and you're shoulder to shoulder. And upon self-reflection, I'm like, I think I've been a little bit dismissive about the impact of COVID on CIG, to be honest, because I myself, like I said, I make sure that certain developers are in the office when I go into the office because of that reason. So I think the impact is actually a lot larger than I gave credit for. And that's what he sort of goes into, is the kind of impact that COVID did have on their collaboration, on their ability to, squash bugs, bring out patches, fix things, essentially everything, right, that requires collaboration. And on a project of this scale, everything requires collaboration. So anyway, they've been massively impacted by COVID, but things are starting to settle down, and they've sort of converging their studios, and obviously we all know about the studio in Manchester and Frankfurt that they're going to. So that will hopefully start seeing an increased rate or a high quality of work as well, coming out of CIG. I'm not saying there was any low quality, but it's just going to get better from here. Why? Because people are collaborating more effectively, essentially. He goes on to talk about that he's been working with the Squadron 42 team in the office, and they're focusing to finish and polish out Squadron 42. He talks about Squadron 42 a little bit further on, and he says, the time, quote from the letter, the time I spent with the Squadron team in the UK has only reinforced this, and this meaning the collaboration or being in the same office as someone else, as the ability to walk over to someone's desk and see the issue, or having a conversation in passing about a problem or creative thought makes an enormous difference to progress. And any of us that kind of work from home and then have got a hybrid work schedule where we work from home and work in the office, you immediately tell the difference. You're a lot more effective. Now, I'm not saying companies should be asking employees to go into the office 5 days a week. I think a hybrid work environment is really the best. You do your stuff at home. You attend to important things at home, like your children and whatever, your parents or whatever that may be. You have some time to do your kind of home stuff while you're at work. But then when you need to collaborate, you have the option of going into an office and collaborating as well and getting things nutted out. So he goes on to say, quote, I personally felt the difference in our release cadence. It took us a little longer to get each patch out than before, and it became harder to solve or fix bugs which hung around longer than previously. I work with software developers, but we don't work on anything as complex as, a giant space MMO that's never been built before. So I could only imagine how much more difficult it made getting things done when people are, isolated in their homes. So I hear you, Sig, I hear. And anyway, it's a very not optimistic. He kind of goes through and explains that they're getting back to the office. They're going back, they're not going back to their old work patterns. There will be they're going to go for a flexi hours and a hybrid kind of work environment, which is good to hear. I think that's the best balance. And I think that's what 99% of enterprises are doing these days. And then he goes on to kind of go through all the wonderful stuff that they did deliver despite COVID-19, Xeno Threat, the Javelin Tour, Jump Down 2, and everything else that, we've all experienced in those last couple of years. So, and obviously Orison and quality of life improvements and volumetric crowds, yada yada yada. We know all the stuff that they've delivered despite all the difficulties that was presented to them by COVID-19. And then he goes on to say just some stats about the health of the project, which for me is important. I always want to know, are we growing in player base? Are players just coming and going? How many players are there? Sometimes I feel the names when I log in are a bit familiar, which tends to make you believe that there's not that many players, but this is coming from the top. So Mr. Roberts goes on to say, we are seeing over 2,000 new players a day joining the verse. Our daily active users has grown by over 50% since the numbers I shared in my last letter from the chairman in December 2020. Wow, it's been 2 years since the last letter from the chairman. Okay. And with this latest patch, he goes on to say, we are enjoying double the daily login traffic of our last April patch launch. So we are enjoying monthly active users, which is well beyond the highs of 2020. And we have had nearly 1 million new accounts created since then, and more than 500,000 new pledging players join the game. And this week we had our 2 millionth unique player log in to play Star Citizen. So we are on track this year to break 4 million accounts. So we've got 4 million accounts, but we've got 2 million unique accounts, which is the real number here, I think. And that all seems to be growing. So that is refreshing. That's good to hear from a guy that's, in love with the game, as we all are. So it seems like the player base is growing. The number of pledges are growing. And so that's awesome. That's awesome. We definitely don't want to hear, player base is shrinking, money is running out. That would be that would be a nightmare scenario for us all. I think we'd all have breakdowns. We love to hate Star Citizen, but if it ever just closed up shop, I think we'd all be in some sort of depression for a few months. And then he goes on to say, there's a lot of information, guys. I do recommend that you hear. Really, for me, he thanks us at the end of the first paragraph. He just says thank you. And Mr. Robertson CIG, thank you. Thank you. Despite me getting salty sometimes, despite me pulling out my hair, I still enjoy putting in, dozens of hours per week into this game. So thank you, guys. Keep up the good work. I feel like I need to say that. And then the next paragraph, guys, is Road to 4.0, right? And he explains how 3.0 was such a huge technological leap for Star Citizen, right? From 2. Whatever it was to 3.0. I actually started playing the game at 3.0, I think. So I never experienced the 2 dot patches. But it was such a huge leap, right? And he wants to make sure that when we go from 3.x to 4.0, that it's all about a huge leap. Like the game will transform, right? It won't be a normal patch. So he says that this year, quote, we find ourselves on a similar path with 3 huge technology initiatives that will fundamentally change the experience and immersion into Star Citizen. The first is called persistent entity streaming, guys. And you know me, guys, I'm not a coder, I'm not technical. I'm a gamer, I consume games, and this is what this podcast is about. It's not about the technology and stuff like that. It's about how I consume, or how us gamers consume the game. So I like to break things down to what experiences they provide for us. So persistent entity streaming is literally one of the building blocks, first of all, for our beloved server meshing technology. But it's also, he says, the hardest part of the work needed for server meshing. So persistent entity streaming, or PES, is the hardest challenge, which surprises me. I thought server meshing would be, but what do I know? And what it is, it's persistence. It's persistence unlike any other game, though. It's literally being able to put that cup of coffee, on a rock in the middle of nowhere and coming back, and that cup of coffee being there, despite 30Ks, despite the server having hiccups, despite everything else, that cup of coffee will persist. At the moment, our persistence is tied to our inventory, our ship inventory, our ship ship components, things like that. That's kind of the scope of persistence at the moment. But anything outside of that, or even inside on the surface of our ships, on the staircase of your ship, or outside of the ship, nothing persists. But this is not normal persistence, guys. I'm thinking of other games, right? I play Elder Scrolls Online. Like, you drop something, you can't even drop anything in the MMOs that I've played, let alone leave something somewhere and come back to it. Obviously, the massive challenge with that for them is we're going to just be littering the world with everything. We're going to be building Jenga towers made out of God knows what. So how do they manage that volume of stuff lying around the world, and server performance and things like that. He goes on to say that they've been working on this persistence since 2019, and he admits that, obviously, he shares with us that the development has not been without road bumps. They had to change their plans. They realized that iCache, which we kind of heard about for however long, would likely not be able to have the low latency at the scale they needed. They needed to pivot from iCache to using a graph database. I have no idea what that is, at the start of 2021. It's taking a different approach. So again, this game is literally like climbing Mount Everest. It's never been done before. So they're going to go down roads that become dead ends, and those roads will cost millions of dollars of backers' money. But that's how this thing's going to work. It's R&D. A lot of this is R&D because it's just never been done before. He goes on to talk about the replication layer and entity graph and all that sort of stuff, which I don't want to get into if you want to get stuck into that. So anyway, they're working on this persistence layer, and all this means that getting persistence entity streaming, this is again quote from the letter, to work would require the bulk of the tech we need to make server meshing viable. So that's how important PES is, right? It's a massive building block of server meshing. So he is happy to report, after 16 months of extremely focused work by 18 engineers, 3 dedicated QA and 4 producers spread between CIG and Turbulent, that the team were able to demonstrate persistent entity streaming working last week in our weekly internal persistent universal update. So today, for the record, guys, is 20th of May 2022. So they got it working, which is great. He goes on to give the specific example. So Paul Reindl, our director of engineering for online tech, spun up a server, populated the entity graph to its initial state along with the replication layer. I'm just sort of going through. Then connected a client, placed down a series of small objects like cans on the surface of Aberdeen, along with an 890 jump and an anvil arrow. He then killed the server and the client. The server was restarted, and when they connected and warped to Aberdeen, everything was there as he placed it. And this is a huge milestone, he goes on to say. It might not seem like much to other people, but it's a huge milestone. And in fact, there is no MMO. There's no even single player games where Skyrim, I think, does it, doesn't it? Like, you could drop objects anywhere and they would persist, I believe. But not many games can do that. No MMOs can definitely do that. So at this scale as well. So PES is coming online. He says it's akin to Neil Armstrong taking one small step for mankind once PES streaming comes online. So that is awesome. And it's working. And they've solved that problem, which is awesome. And then they go on to say that what's going on here? This means that instead of a server dropping to so he goes on to say that with this PES technology present, server meshing becomes possible. It's a very important building block, as we said before. And essentially, PES is the state of the world, right? Like, where things are, what things are, how things are, and it impacts every dynamic object. So they're going to have a system where they're going to look at the importance of these objects that are lying around and kind of get rid of the ones they deem not to be important. Like, let's say there's a 890 jump and some rubbish, on a planet. After a while, they might get rid of that rubbish just to like help save some memory or server performance or whatever, right? They might prioritize these different objects, and that's how they're going to manage the load of all of us just building Jenga towers of of random objects everywhere. We might even build pyramids. Who knows? So the next paragraph is 2022 testing and release cadence, which is interesting. So because of this R&D, because of this PES technology and the build up to server meshing, he says, quote unquote, we are anticipating that 3.18 will require a much longer time in the Evocati PTU phase than our previous releases. Right? Because they're making such a huge change. They're introducing such a huge piece of technology that the testing of that and the integration, troubleshooting, all of the optimization, all of that will take a lot longer than, adding a new ship or, adding a new moon or whatever kind of comes out regularly in a normal patch. So he goes on to say, players do crazy things which expose bugs and edge cases. Our guess is that it may be as long as 3 months in the PTU stage. So 3 months for 3.18. For instance, will the universe turn into a nightmare version of Wall-E because everyone just throws empty boxes on the ground or dumps the 10 AI bodies they've looted in New Babbage's Commons? I'm sure that and much more, Mr. Roberts. We are working on what we call a density manager to manage the objects that get recorded and clean up the low priority ones. So that's what I was referring to before. Maybe getting rid of rubbish, cans, food first before you start getting rid of weapons, backpacks, whatever, loot, so on and so forth, which sounds like a logical system to implement. He goes on to say, however, we do not want engagement and content to stall because of PES requiring longer testing. So we're planning to release a content-rich Alpha 3.17.2 patch with known stable code, new missions, new locations, and other gameplay in late June. So we're still going to get some iterative patches as players, which is good, while they're working on these big ticket items. So this is really important, guys, and exciting. It's very exciting, I think, for Star Citizen. Maybe not so much in our own experience, but all the stuff that's happening in the back end and deep in the labs of CIG is really exciting. It's really exciting. I'm excited that this kind of light at the end of the tunnel, in a way, is being formed, if that makes sense. So that he goes on to say, quote, the goal will then be to get 2 to 3 months of testing on 3.18 in PTU for an Alpha 3.18. So that's the first technical pillar, the PES. The second big technical initiative that they've been working on the past 2 years is a complete replacement of their graphics engine, which they call Gen 12. And I did speak about this previously, and I think I got it wrong. I think I said in a previous podcast, Gen 12 is about how the code utilizes the CPU and the graphics card, but I think it's how it utilizes the CPU. But anyway, so Gen 12, this is again quote from the letter, which is multi-threaded and much more efficient approach to rendering, which gets the most out of our modern graphics APIs like Vulkan. This allows us to utilize the modern graphics power of PCs more efficiently and not tie up the main game update loop with waiting around for draw call submissions and the like. We're looking at getting the bulk of this functionality in for live release of 3.18, with the release of the Vulkan functionality a little later, but hopefully by the end of the year. So again, that's going to be in 3.18 as well. So these two building blocks for server meshing, guys, are going to be in 3.18. And, no wonder it's going to take 3 months of testing and stuff. It probably take more, might take 4 or 5 months. But both these building blocks are going to be transforming the game. One for performance and graphics, and the other one for really how you interact with the universe. So then the third pillar is spoken about. Quote from the letter again: "This leaves us with our third large technical initiatives, the Jesus tech we're all waiting for, server meshing." And that will be 4.0. And it will be a truly new era in Star Citizen. Obviously, we've heard all this before. So the first implementation will be static server meshing, where each server is defined a area to simulate. But as soon as SSM or static server meshing is stable, they'll start moving towards dynamic server meshing with subsequent releases. With 4.0, we will get our second star system, Pyro. And we begin the process of adding more and more content, gameplay, and polish to get us to beta. I don't want to get too excited. I mean, my expectations are low. Some people on Spectrum are like, this letter's great, but just show us examples of pairs and things like that. But I'm just seeing the word beta. And I'm excited. I'm excited. I might get disappointed, but I'm still excited that he uses the word beta. And yeah, so 318 will be 3 months, guys. Will there be a 319? Will there be a 320? We don't know. But if 318 goes smoothly, 2 of the building blocks that we need for server meshing will be in play. And then it's just time to go 4.0 at that point. And then apparently the floodgates will open, according to Mr. Roberts. Our current goal is to introduce server meshing in 4.0 as an early technical preview to Evocati testers in PTU at the end of Q4 this year. So at the end of 2022, potentially Evocati testers might be flying in Pyro, potentially. Allowing our most ardent players, again quoting from the letter, to help us start testing server meshing so we can refine and polish it for release, but this is heavily conditioned on how well or easy the persistent entity streaming or pairs rolls out. So be warned, this has a chance of slipping into Q1 next year. Yeah. We are aiming for the end of Q1 2023 for server meshing. But we really will not know with confidence until it hits testing. So he's saying, despite the fact, we might have PTU Evocati testers on server meshing at the end of the year, or maybe Q1 next year, but it's going to be a year-long process to test it out, optimize it, make sure it's working, yada, yada, yada. But, Q1 2023, I'm getting my years mixed up. That's actually next year. Q1 next year. Okay. So yeah, that's quite optimistic. I was going to give him another year of testing, but okay. Q1 2023. That would be brilliant. Okay. And then he goes on to sort of talk about this weird cadence of 318 taking 3 months, and, players that have veterans have been on the project. It's not necessarily that unusual when they've had to introduce big technological leaps. So hopefully, quote from the letter, and by year's end, players will be able to enjoy persistent streaming, salvage, cargo refactor, and Bounty Hunter V2 gameplay on live. This is end of 2022. And then there's some wonderful pictures of their new studios in Manchester. And let me go back to my desktop view. And Frankfurt, I think. And these offices look nice. So there's just some pictures of some literally empty floors being built. And then, who doesn't want to work here? Lifesize. Is this real, or is this... I can't tell if this is a real picture or if it's concept. That's a concept. Okay, these are concepts. I mean, this looks like the spaceport in like New Babbage and stuff. Like, what a wonderful place it would be to work if it actually looked like this. I mean, that looks like New Babbage. So they're building really flash offices, guys, and there's a massive grim. Look at that. There's a grim hex symbol. That is fantastic. There's a grim hex section of the office, guys. It's like red and black. No way. That's fantastic. I'm sorry, audio podcasters. But you can check this out on YouTube as well. Wonderful. All right. So moving on. I mean, these are just outstanding. I would love to work there. So the next part of the letter is a building for longevity. So he goes on to say that today we have 780 people on staff, plus an extended family of over 130 working closely with us at Turbulent in Montreal. So, over 800 people, nearly 900 people working on Star Citizen today, guys. In 2022, he continues on to say we will continue to grow in all departments, increasing our headcount to approximately 840 and bring us closer to release for Star Citizen Squadron 42. One challenge they've been facing is they've had nowhere near the room at their current studios for new people that have joined, and that's why they've signed two long-term leases, one in Manchester and one in Frankfurt, which is those flash offices we were just looking at before. And I think that once they all start moving into these two hubs, collaboration will start increasing, and efficiency and, workflow optimization and communication will, I think as consumers of the game, we're going to really experience that, which is pretty cool. It's followed by some more pictures in their Texas office as well. I think they're going to move somewhere new and flash. And then there is a announcement about CitizenCon in the letter. So I won't go through the details, but essentially they're going to focus, he's just told us what huge things they're working on this year. They don't have time to do a physical CitizenCon, and B, it's too risky. They could pour all this work into doing a physical CitizenCon. A new strain of COVID might come out, and then it just gets cancelled with the snap of a finger. Some government official would say, no, you can't gather in public places, and all that energy, time would be potentially wasted. So I actually like the fact they're not doing a physical CitizenCon. They're going to do a digital one, and they're going to be focusing on probably 318 at the time and PES. So he goes on to say, quote unquote, because of this, combined with the huge amount of work the company is trying to deliver this year, not to mention moving 70% of the company into 2 new offices, we have decided not to hold a physical CitizenCon this year. And he wraps up the section of the letter with, we are still going to be quiet on Squadron 42 until it is time to start the release campaign. And we are not quite there yet. Know that progress is coming along nicely, but we're not ready to pull the curtain back on Squadron just yet. And Squadron 42 for me is going to be a very big test for CIG, because unlike the PTU, where, as I've said many times before, it's like climbing Mount Everest, which means mistakes will be made, which means research and development is undertaking, which means things will be experimented on, things will fail, and we're all okay with it. We're all okay with it. Why? Because it's never been done before. But single player games have been done before, and single player games for what they do, are of the highest quality. Things like Mass Effect, and I get pissed off when people in the Star Citizen community go to the lowest common denominator when they compare developers. They always say, oh, well, Cyberpunk was a mess, or this game was a mess, or that game was a mess. They never ever pick the top end of the AAA category to compare things with. Like, Mass Effect is outstanding. Last of Us, whether you like it or you don't like it, is outstanding. Doom is outstanding. Uncharted is outstanding. Outstanding. I don't care what your opinion, if the game if it bores you or doesn't bore you, that's irrelevant. These are outstanding pieces of gaming technology. The quality, the technical performance, the stories they tell, the gameplay loops they present, the world has spoken. They're outstanding, right? And that's what you get compared against. Elden Ring, outstanding. I played Deathloop, outstanding this year. Borderlands 1, 2, 3, absolutely outstanding. Genre creating was Borderlands, right? I can go on and on. It makes me laugh when people say, "Oh, there's no good games out there." My head explodes when people talk like that. Yeah. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say, Squadron 42 will be compared with no excuses, no you're climbing Mount Everest, no forgiveness. When it comes out, it will be compared to those games, and there's no excuse. Your bartenders better respond. You better not glitch through the floor. You better be able to reload your gun. And don't get me wrong, CIG knows this. Chris Roberts knows this. He's, if anything, he's proven himself with single player games. So he knows the quality that's got to be hit, and they won't. That's why they won't show anything. They're not going to show anything until they know its quality is premium. So I hope they can do it, and I hope they can do it quickly. I hope it doesn't take another 5 years. But anyway, that's my little rant on Squadron 42. We still know nothing, and we won't know anything just yet until they're ready to go. And then he goes on, the next part of the letter is Bar Citizen World Tour, which is cool, man, because before COVID hit, I had signed up to go to a Bar Citizen here in Sydney. Super excited. I was super excited to go meet other people that are in the verse, have a beer with them, have some food with them, and talk Star Citizen amongst 10, 20 people. It would have been absolutely amazing. So I'm going to keep my eye out for any Bar Citizen activities that are happening here in Sydney, or even I'll drive even an hour or 2 hours out of Sydney to or even 3 hours to participate. So he's talking about Bar Citizen. He's literally saying that they want to do a Bar Citizen World Tour, which is pretty cool. I don't know what that means exactly, but they want to go to where their studios are, near all their development studios, which boohoo is not Sydney, Australia. And then I think they're going to do a second wave or something. They're planning to branch out and bring the fun events that may not be as close to our studios as well. So after that, there'll be like a second wave of Bar Citizens potentially that aren't necessarily in Manchester or Frankfurt or Texas or whatever. So that's pretty cool. And that's the end of the letter, guys. So for me, it's a real, very informative. There's actual, I know people are going to laugh, but there is timelines in this. There is an indication that they've broken through a technological hurdle, which was the persistent stuff. I think Gen 12 rendering is fine. It's under control. It's nothing impossible. It's going to happen. So that's two of the building blocks for server meshing. So really, guys, I'm really optimistic. I'm very thankful for this letter. It's awesome. It's really given me a step in my walk, I suppose. So yeah, go check it out, guys. The Chairman's Letter. In other news, if we've got time, it's been 39 minutes, so 20 minutes, I'll try and wrap this up. But in other news, guys, Invictus week is fast approaching. We've got the Scorpius that's out in PTU. We've got the Anvil Legionnaire that's been announced. I mean, there's just so much stuff happening, guys. I just wanted to quickly have a look at the Anvil Legionnaire next. So I'm just going to the website now. It kind of has got Valkyrie vibes, sort of, to it. It's got a weird shaped fuselage. It's got this kind of like chunky front end, and then this sort of thin back end that comes out. It's got definitely VTOL main thrusters. I think it's got 2 turrets. One of them is on the top, and it's 2 size 2 weapons, and one at the rear, which is again got another 2 size 2. I don't think there's any underneath it. Both of them seem to be on the top, none below. So one of the key features that intrigues me is this hacking feature. So I'm just going to quote from the website again. So when the operation calls for the rapid recovery of an enemy occupied vehicle or station. Oh, sorry, that's just the summary of what it does. I'll continue reading. The Legionnaire is ready for duty with 8 drop seats, versatile docking options, and an advanced security infiltration system. Even the most difficult boardings are viable with the Legionnaire in your fleet. So the hacking part, I mean, the docking part's interesting. It's really like rounding out the whole piracy gameplay, if you like. And it's not only pirates that board ships, actually, it's the military. But yeah, it's, you know, being able to trap someone with a mantis, with quantum snare and quantum dampening, and then knocking out the ships of, sorry, knocking out the engine of a ship, and then having this thing approach and force itself to connect to your docking port, and yeah, 8 people will storm onto your ship. So here's a brief description of some key features. So hack in. The Legionnaire's integrated infiltration systems empower operators to stealthily disable security measures on target vessels, leaving them vulnerable to docking, boarding, and seizure. So I wonder if there's going to be a counterplay to this. I wonder how it will be implemented tier 0. Like, anyone in the Legionnaire could just hack your systems and, I don't know, open your doors, close your doors, or disable your engines. Or will there be like some sort of counterplay? Can I upgrade my computers to a level where I can, detect someone hacking in, and then I can try and, hack them back, if you like. I'm sure there will be. That's interesting. It's really interesting. Here's a picture of a Legionnaire connected to, not sure what that ship is. It's connected to something. So the Legionnaire's 2-in-1 docking collar connects to all UEE standard apertures, allowing for the infiltration of vessels and facilities of all sizes. All right, I'm gonna get old freaking alien ships, guys. So none of y'all can dock me. I'm just gonna buy alien ships, because this thing is made for all UEE standard apertures. There's 8 high performance jump seats. I don't know what high performance jump seats are as opposed to standard performance jump seats. Are they more comfortable maybe? I'm not sure. But anyway, 8 people will be boarding the ship, which is pretty cool. And armed breach. Built-in storage weapons means weapons and breach charges are always close at hand and ready when needed. So there's going to be a significant locker area on this ship where you can store weapons and stuff, and probably kit out your men differently depending on what situation they're going into. But there's a picture here of a narrow hallway, which is the docking bridge, and 8 guys in a single file going down this hallway with one of their brothers in arms shooting over their shoulders down through the hallway. I mean, I can also imagine this being quite messy, man. I mean, I wouldn't want to be the first guy going down. I'm just imagining someone launching a grenade into that narrow passageway, and then it's just game over. The hunter becomes the hunted. But yeah, there's not much else you can do. It also says a trio of shield generators. So it's going to have 3 shield generators, and military-derived armor keep the Legionnaire protected from incoming fire. So it's going to be fully armored as well. So it's got a 2-in-1 docking collar, dock with any size ship or station. It's got a hacking console, as we spoke about, breach even the most complex security grids. Its cockpit is clearly a command any operation. 8 seats. It's got VTOL. It's got lockers. It's got 2 size 2 remotely operated turrets. Sorry. It's got 2 turrets. Each turret's got 2 size 2 weapons. Like a... Correct me if I'm wrong, but a cutlass. It's like 2 cutlass turrets. And heavy armor. And 3 dedicated shield generators. What size are they? 3 size 1 generators. I wonder what decision making goes into having like 3 size 1 as opposed to 1 size 2. I suppose having 3 size 1 generators when components become physicalized means that you have more redundancy. So if one of them fails, 2 of them fails, you still have a bit of shield left maybe. But it's interesting. Its length is 32 meters. Its width is 23 meters and a height of 10 meters. So guys, that is the Legionnaire, the Anvil Legionnaire. Go check it out. It's available. I think it's available right now. It is available. I did see some prices somewhere. And that is the Legionnaire. Anvil Legionnaire coming to a store near you. All right, next is, guys, the I mean, this was top of the list to talk about when I was putting this podcast together, and now it's like bottom of the list, and that's the Scorpius, guys. That is the Scorpius. I mean, the X-Wing is in the house. One of the most popular sci-fi ships is in the house, in the verse. I would say the only thing more popular than the X-Wing would be the Death Star itself, or maybe like Star Trek's USS Enterprise, potentially. I think those 3 ships, in my eyes, are like the big 3 in terms of popularity and recognition in sci-fi. And we've got our own X-Wing in the house, the RSI Scorpius. And I don't own one yet, but I did get to fly one. So my take on it is, obviously, let's go through the weapons. So there's 4 size 3 pilot controlled guns pointing forward. There's 4 size 3 turret. There's 4 size 3 on the turret. And some people are like, why can't we slave the turret to the pilot? And I'm like, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to realize having 8 size 3 guns pointing forward could potentially make this ship OP, right? I mean, even if you were the best arrow pilot, I reckon you'd die within the first, 10 seconds or 5 seconds, first pass. You wouldn't even be able to pass a ship. And look, I'm not one to defend the light fighters, but you know what I'm saying. It'll be way too powerful. Might as well just forget about light fighters and medium fighters, and everyone sits in a Warden or a Hurricane or a Scorpius and have their turrets slaved forward, and we have 8 guns pointing forward. So I disagree with that. There's a lot of balancing that needs to be done, and just having that much firepower in the control of one man makes no sense. So they need to, they'll manage that. And but anyway, 8 size 3 guns on this thing. It's got 16 size 2 missiles, which is a lot of missiles. It's pretty cool, man. That's a lot of missiles. That'll last a while, 16 missiles. One thing I noticed when I sat in the cockpit, unlike most of the other RSI ships, this thing had a lot of visibility. Up, down, left, right. It was really, really good. There was no like struts. You could look all around you. Really, really good visibility. And in addition to that, in front of you, they'd split the 2 MFD terminals apart, and you could see outside of your ship, straight ahead and a little bit below you. So you have this gap in the cockpit, which I've never seen before, which gives you even more visibility to the front and below you a little bit, which is really, really nice. The 4 pilot-controlled guns are on the wings, and they're at a bit of a risk of getting blown off. Which, you know, when it comes to design, you probably wouldn't put your weapons at the tip of your wings, to be honest. But anyway. Another thing I noticed is it only had 2 MFDs instead of 4. Which, I don't know, maybe they didn't have the space. Maybe, I don't know why they had 2 MFDs and not 4. But, yeah, I noticed that it was only 2 MFDs, which is a bit strange. I don't know the reasoning why. I think there is some room to the extreme left and right to have MFDs, but you know, I mean, for me, it's not a massive thing. Most of the time, in my view, I've only got the 2 MFDs. I use the other MFDs for communications and stuff. So yeah, just a little bit more clicking admin work, if you like, when you're not fighting. One thing that I had a chuckle was when you retract the landing gear, the wings fold back and the thing looks like an Aurora, which I kind of wish the Aurora would actually extend its wings out when I saw that. It actually looked like an Aurora, which was really good at keeping that DNA, the design principles of RSI throughout these ships. And I had a bit of a chuckle when I saw it, retract its landing gear. I was like, it's disguised as an Aurora. I wonder if somehow you can kind of play with that somehow. Oh, look, it's only an Aurora. Bzzz. Oh, shit, it's an X-Wing. The fuselage was a bit short. The fuselage of the ship is extremely short. Looked a bit weird for me, top down. But all the components opened out. So this is one of those new, is it gold standard? I don't know. But you can open and all the components are exposed. So you can pull them out. You can't pull them out yet, but you know, you'll be able to interact with those components. And you know, they designed this ship pretty much like tier 3. You know, it's kind of like gold standard type stuff when you can pretty much eject all your components out. Or expose them, sorry. It had 1,500 micro Skrew of storage, so you had a little storage container as well. But other than that, guys, the maneuverability, I think for me, it felt like the Hurricane pretty much. So, yeah, it's a competitor to the Hurricane, to the Warden. I think, hopefully, I'm going to use my credits to get one, hopefully in Invictus. And hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll be the heavy fighter that I go with. I think I'm going to melt my Inferno and go with the Scorpius. Other bits of news, guys, just quickly, a technical thing. With Alpha 3.17 on the horizon, SIG announced a new minimum DirectX feature set. Version 11.1. So make sure your DirectX is 11.1, guys. And finally, Invictus week, guys, is fast approaching. There was some videos that were released by Star Citizen, but I want to keep this podcast to below an hour. And we won't have time to go through the videos this week. There's just too much news happening. It's crazy. It's crazy. Invictus Week is fast approaching, guys. I can't wait. I have a great time at Invictus Week. I love, pretending to be a critique of the conference and, rating the different manufacturers' days, basing it on innovation and atmosphere and new technologies or whatnot, and variety, things like that, and kind of rating them each. It's just a game that I play every year. It's fun. I think there'll be, there'll be some interesting displays on. It'll be at Orison. There's also an FPS mission on Orison that's coming out as well in 3.17.1. So there's some part of Orison where the Ninetales have stormed and taken over, and there's going to be a PvE FPS mission while the conference is on, which is pretty crazy, which is really cool, actually. So the only problem is getting to Orison itself. I can never seem to find the air traffic controller. So hopefully new players will not be as stupid as me and be able to find the ATC a lot faster than I do. Invictus launch week is coming May 20th to May 31st, guys. There's going to be a Javelin Tour. There's going to be the largest UEE Navy kind of tour as they go around the major planets of Stanton. So apparently the UEE naval fleet will be bigger than we've ever seen before. So that'll be a spectacle. Obviously the Javelin Tour and the convention itself, and this FPS mission that's being added. So there's a lot of things happening, guys. It's really, really exciting. I can't wait. So each manufacturer is going to be on for 48 hours. We've got May 20th, 21st will be Anvil. And it's good that it's 24 hours, actually. Sorry, not 24 hours, 48 hours. 48 hours, guys. Each manufacturer will be on for 48 hours. So this gives us more time to log in and not miss out on different manufacturers. So May 20th, 21st is Anvil. 22nd, 23rd of May is Aegis. 24th and 25th will be a combination of RSI, Origin Jumpworks, Consolidated Outland, and Argo as well. May 26th, 27th will be Crusader, Tumbril, and Misk. May 28th, 29th will be my beloved Drake. And then there'll be a finale on the 30th and 31st. So remember, it's free to play. You can rent any ship as well. I mean, if you want to show this game off to any of your friends, and fingers crossed it doesn't dissuade them from joining, now's the time to do it, I suppose, because they can experience all the ships. Once they rent a ship, I think it's available for, don't quote me, for like 24 or 48 hours. And yeah, they can jump in for free. Everyone gets, you don't even have to buy a ship. You get a Pisces. Everyone gets a Pisces, so they don't even have to purchase a ship. They can get in for free and experience the verse with us. So yeah, Invictus launch week. I'll see if I can do some sort of rating again. The problem with my rating system is that I find that it's hard to distinguish between the manufacturers sometimes to definitively say these guys did a good expo, these guys did an average expo, these guys did a poor expo. But I'll keep thinking about that and seeing what type of system I can come up with. But guys, that was been Star Citizen this week. So much going on. And thank you for your time. This has been Monster69 with Skeleton Crew News. And I will see you guys next time. Take care and bye for now.